Hey, what's up? It's Cube Guy, the Nolan Slayer himself. Today I'm going to be bringing you my matchup chart for Skipper from the game Super Brawl 2, the height of the Super Brawl series. Uh, a Nickelodeon flash fighting game that only has two buttons. This is the best game in the series and by far has the best roster and also by far has the best fighting game character in history, that being Skipper. So I'd like to explain why Skipper is so good by going over his matchups and explaining how characters can't deal with him, characters that can somewhat deal with him, and characters that they can deal with him, but Skipper, once again, if like played to perfection, which I am going to say a lot, that Skipper played to perfection is the best fighting game character of all time. Skipper played to perfection would beat them, but like in a normal setting, I still think that these characters are viable alternatives to Skipper. And if you don't want to play Skipper, then you can play these two characters and try to beat Skipper. So, all right, let's get into it. So, let's go into the plus three. So, a common trend with these characters is that they are really bad at dealing with Skipper. Have Are usually at the lower end of the tier list. Um, you know, there are some characters in here like Plankton and Tough Puppy, which who are there. They're just they're too big, so Skipper infinites them a lot harder than a lot of other characters. SpongeBob and Sheen are interesting because they can dash at Skipper, and that might throw him off for a second. But unfortunately, by doing that, they then throw themselves into the corner, and that then leads to the Skipper Infinite with his kick. And Skipper, by the way, he has two true infinites. The first is a full screen infinite with his special, where if you rapidly press his special move, he will infinitely lock the opponent, and it's one of the best. It's one of the reasons why Skipper is the best character in the game. His second infinite is just kick. Just doing kick is a true infinite for like a couple characters, but Skipper is a character that he has it, so obviously he's already up there with like some of the better characters in the game. But the full screen infinite is what really makes him one of the best characters in the game, in my opinion. No, just the best character in the game, in my opinion. So, uh, these characters here can't deal with it necessarily, and if they try to deal with it, they end up getting walled out or destroyed. So that's why I put them in plus three for Skipper. Really, almost impossible, I'd say. Um, Next up, let's go to plus two. So you may notice something interesting that SpongeBob I put in plus three, but Ryu SpongeBob is actually in only plus two. That's just because I think that Ryu SpongeBob has a better chance of dealing with Skipper's zoning than normal SpongeBob, but I still think that it's arguable that he could be downgraded to plus three for Skipper. But we have to wait and see. We haven't seen any Ryu SpongeBob players really pull up to the latest tournaments. It feels like everybody's playing Skipper these days. So next up we got Patrick. Patrick, Patrick is basically the same archetype that Sandy is, who I put in plus three, but Patrick is only plus two because he's just a better character than Sandy. Sandy has a hard time doing anything, but Patrick, he's a lot better at it because his special is a lot faster and a lot more damaging, but it has like basically the same range that Sandy does. So there's really no point in trying to pick Sandy in this matchup. I think that Patrick also may have a kick infinite, but I might be wrong about that. But it's just like Patrick is a big body, so he's gonna get walled out by Skipper, gonna get absolutely annihilated by Skipper at the long range, where Patrick's special doesn't work. And that's the same deal with Fanboy. Fanboy is like the same sort of thing. I think that maybe Fanboy does a little bit better than Patrick just because he has more range, but he's a bit slower. But I still think that these characters are, just they fare a little bit better against Skipper than the plus three characters, which is why I put them up. But it starts to only get interesting at plus one against Skipper. So let's go into plus one. So the first character that I'd like to go over is Danny Phantom, who I think is awful, but there's one thing that allows him to do good against multiple characters, and that's his block, which allows him to actually negate damage. So if Danny Phantom wants to just hit the opponent like one time and just run away, he can do that and easily win by a timeout because he doesn't take any chip from block, which makes him the most unique. Like he has the most unique block in the game. So by that alone, he can escape the skipper full screen infinite. He can escape the corner infinite. Um, so he doesn't really have to worry about what other characters have to worry about. But I still think that despite the block, Danny Phantom doesn't have any good tools to really deal with Skipper. He's actually, in my opinion, like, uh, if you really want to look at him, he's just like a worse Sandy, which is really hard because Sandy is really bad. So if you ignore block, then Danny Phantom is a bad character, but just because of the block, he's only +1. Uh, so then we go to Otis, who is only in +1 for a reason. You might think, oh, well, Otis is a big body. Otis is going to get annihilated, right? Wrong. You see, Otis has one of the best specials in the game, probably up there with Skipper. No, not up there with Skipper. Like, maybe up there with, as you'll see later, Monkey. And, I still think that Skipper, Skipper he beats Otis, but not by that much because Otis has a nasty little trick up his sleeve, and that's that his special move charges a lot of meter for the super special, and his super special is a full screen cross up. So if he is allowed to sit in the corner and do his special over and over again, then he'll get the super special and he can avoid the Skipper Infinite, which once again is one of the most important things to try to avoid, because getting hit by the Skipper Infinite means death. Next, let's go up to Kevin. Kevin is just an awful character, except he's not. He actually has some of the better zoning in the game. Not best, but the pushback on his special is really good. And I just think that he's a complete character, and he has the same sort of deal with Otis that his super special allows him to cross up. But the problem is that Otis, I still think would fare a little bit better than Kevin in this matchup because the way that Otis builds meter is not like how he builds meter, so it's really a different story there. Now let's go over to Aang. Aang is interesting. I'd say that Aang is only good at one really specific thing, and that's counter zoning. If you're playing rushdown against Aang, he can't do anything. But if you're playing against a campy skipper that likes to just sit in the back and do shuriken, which why wouldn't you? It's one of the best moves in the game, perhaps the best move in the game. Uh, I just don't think that Aang can deal with rushdown, but against zoning, I think that Aang does really well because of his special. His super special is a bit lackluster, but the special is really what sets him apart from the other characters. So I think that gives him a little bit of an advantage in the matchup. Um, Now let's go over to Doctor Blowhole, who basically for like the same reason that Otis is up here, his super special is an invincibility bubble. So it allows him to break out of the infinite. I also think that Doctor Blowhole has one of the best jab combos in the game. Because he does the tail slap, and the tail slap has a incredible amount of range. So he's actually able to outrange Skipper if he tries to approach, but Skipper doesn't have to approach. That's the thing. Skipper is really good at not approaching. He is one of the best characters in the game at not approaching. So now let's move on to the big two characters under Skipper, that being Chum Chum and Monkey. So Chum Chum and Monkey share a similar trait. That is that they are small and that they have kick infinites. And that makes them some of the best characters in the game. Like just right under, they're not right under Skipper, I'd say, because I still think that Skipper is in a tier of his own. But under the tier that Skipper is in, I put Otis, Chum Chum, and Monkey. I just think that Otis, when compared in the matchup to Skipper, he doesn't beat Skipper, but just because Otis is really good against every other character in the game, I'd still say that I would put him next to Chum Chum and next to Monkey. But when it comes to the matchup, I still think that Chum Chum and Monkey are like even with Skipper. Um, so obviously, we already know about Chum Chum. He has the best kick in the game. It's like basically a frame one kick with zero lag. So he has the best kick infinite in the game. And then Monkey, he has the tail slap for his kick, but it's a true infinite just because of the amount of like general hit stun that it has. They're also really small, so they can avoid the skipper. They can avoid the skipper throwing stars. Um, and I think that, you know, Chum Chum and Skipper are basically like the same archetype. It's just that Chum Chum's special doesn't come in comparison to what Skipper's special is. They have like basically the same super special. So if you lock Skipper in the corner and do the super special, you'll get a lot of damage on him from Chip. And Monkey is like basically the same deal. And Monkey's projectile is pretty good. Uh, so I'd say that Monkey, uh, you know, now that I'm looking at this, I think that Chum Chum, he does a little bit better than Monkey, but I'd still say that they're even matchups. And I mean, if played to perfection, I still think that Skipper should win the matchup. Um, but like considering that we're trying to balance this around every level of play, at least that's what I like to do with these matchup charts. I'd still say that Chum Chum and Monkey are like about even with Skipper. Um, and I mean, obviously, the best way to beat Skipper is to bring out your own Skipper, because Skipper is the Brawl Meta Knight of Brawl Meta Knights. Uh, just there's no reason not to pick Skipper. So uh, now let me just give some final analysis. So Skipper, is just a really solid character. His matchup spread is the best in the game. There are no other characters that have this matchup spread like he does. Um, you know, he has some interesting head-to-head matchups with other characters, but in the end, I still think that Skipper doesn't really lose to anybody and dominates most of the cast. So thank you for watching. I'm gonna get back to playing some more Super Brawl 2. See me at PSM. No, I'm banned from PSM. I can't go. See me at MSP, where I'm gonna be hosting the first ever Super Brawl 2 tournament ever of all time on Wi-Fi. It's gonna be really fun. We're gonna do it. It's gonna be great. We have a $2 cash prize. So come on down. Make sure to sign up. I'm out of here. Thank you.